In my chess coaching experience, I've realized that a lot of players did not realize that they're a lot closer to reaching the advanced level in chess, and they're in fact just one skill away from reaching that chess goal of 1800 or 2000 rating. It's simply that nobody ever explained it to them, okay? So let me do this today for you. I'm Grandmaster Igor Smirnov, and let me tell you a couple observations that I've made, and then you'll tell me if you can relate to it. Okay, so a lot of players got interested into chess around 2020. Thanks to the Netflix series, chess became somewhat trendy. They started playing chess. And then one of the first questions that they realized is how to counter the move pawn to e4. Like, generally speaking, when you're playing black, you're down a tempo, so white has a little bit more chances to develop an attack early in the game, and therefore black's gotta be careful. Now, usually it starts off with the most standard move, the usual move pawn e5. But then what happens is, white can start to target this vulnerable square f zone one way or the other, either with some sort of, scholar's checkmate threats like this, or at a more advanced level, they can try something else. For example, if I drop it back and let's say we transition to the two knights game here, and then let's say you once got into this right liver attack trouble and you lost the game badly, and then you start checking this question in the internet, how do I counter the right liver attack? And then you start checking the variations, and they seem to be quite complicated. Like, you gotta play d5, and after the capture you should not recapture, but go knight a5, bishop b5, and the line goes on and on, and you think, oh, like, that's just way too complicated. Is there any other idea about that? And then when you start checking this again, here comes a video from Gotham Chess, or maybe Daniel Nordisky or somebody else, who tells you, hey, you just gotta play the Caro-Kann Defense. So you give it a try to the Caro-Kann Defense and you start playing pawn to c6 and then pawn to d5 because Gotham Chess told you that you're going to be fine here. And indeed, there is no more bishop c4, nobody can right liver you or anything like that, so you feel safe and you can play this opening. But what happens next is very often people get stuck in a rating range of 1200 or something like that, right? And they can never progress further, and they wondering why is it that they can never improve despite of seemingly putting in the time and effort into chess, okay? Now let me explain this to you what the heck is going on here. So let's say you're playing this Caro-Kann Defense, and it is indeed safe. You kind of secure yourself from any early attacks of white. But what happens is, let's say you're even facing not a very strong opponent who's playing second best moves. Let's say he goes for the exchange variation and then just develops pieces casually. Let's say he doesn't know any opening theory here. He's just putting his pieces out. Let's say you go bishop g4, right? That's what they recommend. And then you just kind of develop. Well, so white brings the bishop out and you get in a position something like that. Okay, let's say white goes knight e5. So you end up in a middle game position of something like that. Now, again, so far so good, right? Nobody's attacking you, haven't lost the game, you haven't blundered anything, which is already nice. But here's the problem. Can you attack white's king here somehow? And generally speaking, how are you going to attack in this game? It's not all that easy to answer that question because Caro-Kann Defense is more of a defensive opening. It's a little bit dull. And for somebody like Magnus Carlsen, that's like a dream come true position. He's going to outplay his clueless opponent over the course of the next 50 moves, and at the end of the day, his dummy opponent, who happens to be the 2700 Grandmaster, will look at the position and think, hey, how could I last? It has always been equal, goddamn, right? So, and Magnus will secretly be like, so that's what's going on if you're a Magnus Carlsen, right? But if you're just learning chess, right, what's the point of playing a position where you have no attacking prospects? Because basically, how do you win on a level below 1800, let's say? How do you win? Okay, let me share with you one example. Now, what's the worst chess opening of all, right? It could be the Grub opening, right? Pawn to g4. And yet, if we're going over the most played line, it goes like this. Bishop g2, black picks up the pawn happily. Here comes pawn to c4. Black realizes that this pawn is in trouble, so they defend it. And now after the trade on d5, white goes queen to b3. Here black realizes that, wait a second, there is this pressure along this diagonal, the pawn is attacked, this pawn is attacked, so they want to solidify their position, and they play pawn to e6, which is a straightforward blunder, and after queen a4, white double attacks the king and the bishop, and white is getting a winning position right on move 6. And again, this is not some weird game. No, this is the most played line of black, okay? That's how most players react to the Grub's opening. So if you take a look at what's going on here, what happened is right after white created the very first serious threat in this game, right, put some pressure on black, black blundered immediately. right? And that is a very common thing because players of lower rating, they usually have low defensive skills. They don't really know how to defend, and also they blunder all over the place. So all you gotta do is to put pressure, right, to start attacking, and then they overlook something inevitably. If not immediately, then a couple moves down the road, they will anyway overlook something. So that is basically how you beat guys who are below 1800. You just put pressure, you attack, and you gotta develop those attacking skills of yours in order to pass that level. And once you do that, it is then when you start really caring more about endgames, positional skills, and like holding your chess mastery. Unfortunately, people who do play the Caro-Kann Defense never got a chance to develop their attacking skills, so they never got these most crucial skills that is necessary to beat lower rated players, and so they can never progress. So what do you do instead? I mean, first of all, if let's say you do not feel comfortable for some reason going into the e5, like the usual stuff, right? The one opening that I recommend is the Scandinavian defense, where you also narrow down the theory just to one opening that you get a play, but it is a lot more aggressive, okay? So I won't dive into the opening theory of the Scandinavian defense, it's a separate subject. I'll link a video down below this video if you want to check it out. I've got a separate video about that. So again, here you don't need to know a ton of theory, but at the same time, this is an aggressive opening, so you learn how to attack. But honestly, it's not all that scary to play the main line pawn to e5, seeking the open game with more opportunities for you to seize the initiative and to start attacking. Because all these early tricks of white, let's say if they're going for some sort of, the fool's mate idea, like you're gonna want to welcome them as long as you just study a simple refutation, because usually people who go for that, they aren't that great attackers, they just rely on a single trick, and we can easily prepare with some counter trick, right? So for example, when people are going for the scholar's mate, I always encourage you to just let them do that. You don't even need to prevent this, so let them play this, right? And if they try to deliver this fool's mate, you can surprise them with, let's say, something like pawn to f5, which is a pretty cool way to ruin their self-confidence. Now, in most cases, they'll capture by the queen, trying to insist on that checkmating pattern. If they take it with a pawn, you then play knight to d5, then you have knight f6, followed by pawn to d5, kicking this bishop away. You've got knight to d4, attacking the queen, attacking this pawn. Your bishop comes out and grabs this pawn on f5. Your pawn can go forward to e4 and attack this queen once again. And you can see that things start happening in your favor. Now, but in most cases, they're going to capture with a queen, overlooking the move pawn to d5, which is a very nice refutation. This hits the queen as well as the bishop, so at the very least, you're going to win the bishop. But in most cases, funnily enough, they're so obsessed with their checkmating idea that they actually capture the pawn right here, still hoping for this checkmate, and then you just grab the queen and they resign. So that's how you deal with those tricksters who are trying these early unsound attacks against you. As you can see, it's not all that difficult to counter it. You just need to learn like the fairly simple refutation. If you want to, by the way, study some other sidelines that are possible in this line, I've got another video about that. I'll link it as well. But basically, that's how you do that. Now let's see how you can handle the opening variation that terrifies so many. The right liver attack after bishop c4, they're going knight to g5. So what do you do in that case? Again, at first it looks like you're in trouble or you gotta learn a ton of theory to refute that. But what I've came to realize is that usually people who play that, they know just a single trick. So that's all they know, basically. They know that if you go pawn to d5 and after this exchange you take with the knight, they've got this nasty sacrifice knight takes f7, followed by queen to f3, attacking the knight, attacking the king, and that's how they hope to win. But good news for you is that that's all they know, that's all they hope for. And if you just get away from that, which is pretty simple to do that, so going back a couple moves, you just should not recapture right here, right? So instead you go knight a5. And here their opening theory knowledge basically ends, and now they got in trouble, which is quite funny. So the refutation basically is kind of like that. Now, what you want here is you want to push this bishop away, then you're ready to always play h6 if you want to and kick this knight off. At some point, they'll probably get this pawn back, so if they want to hold on to the pawn, they gotta go bishop b5, but then you can play pawn to c6, and although white wins a pawn along the way, you're kind of seizing the initiative, and now you're the side who are gonna be attacking. So the bishop usually, in most cases, goes back to a4, then you play pawn to h6 and kick this knight back, and after knight f3 and pawn a4, basically white is already in quite a huge trouble. Now their knight does not have that many squares to go to, this square is controlled by the queen, and if they land their knight to e5, hoping to kind of capture this pawn over here and deliver some trouble, it turns out that after queen to d4, you're actually winning the game, because now you have this double attack against their two minor pieces and they cannot save it. The only way to kind of try to hold on to this is capturing with the bishop, but then after this exchange, you go queen c5, locking the door for this knight. It can't go out. On the next move, you're going to capture it, plus you're ahead in development. White is completely passive. You've got a lot of open lines for your attack. You can throw this bishop over here and hit the queen. Of course, you'll want to pick up the knight first, and that's how you win. So again, you see that they're basically relying on a single trick. If you know how to stay away from that opening trap, you can easily overtake the initiative and defeat them in no time. Now, let me know if you have any questions about that, if you have another opinion, and I'll make sure to follow up. Also, if you want to know my little bit more advanced strategies for becoming you a stronger chess player, you're welcome to attend my free masterclass by clicking the link over there. Wishing you a great rest of the day. Keep crushing it.